Hello, Psychology of Learning students. So the purpose of this video, I hope it'll be short, we'll see, is to give you more clarification or instructions on the behavior modification project. Now, for this semester, spring 2023, the project is due May 1st by 11:59 p.m. It will take you 2 weeks to perform this assignment at the very least, because you're going to have to observe a behavior that you want to change for 5 days. Then it's going to take you a couple of days to analyze the information that you have after observing it for 5 days to come up with a behavior modification plan. Then you have to implement the plan and record your behavior for 4 days. And then it's going to take you a couple of days to write the paper up. You need to turn it into a 4 to 5 page paper describing everything that you've done. And so it's going to take you 2 weeks minimum to do, everything that needs to get done. So because it's due May 1st by 11:59, you're going to need to start it by April 17th, by Monday, April 17th. So probably by April 16th, that Sunday, you're going to really want to have chosen your behavior, have watched this video, and you're really ready to go. All right. So let me share the screen. I want to go through what you're going to do. So I'm right here in the course, Blackboard course shell. And when you click on course materials, the second link that comes up is the behavior modification project. And here's where the instructions are for the project. So it talks about how basically you're going to get some experience with operant conditioning, and in doing so, classical conditioning too. But what you're going to want to do is choose a behavior that you want to modify, a behavior that you'd like to either increase or decrease, some behavior that you want to change. Now, it's going to be really important to pick a good behavior. If you don't do a good job and put some thought into the behavior you want to change, the whole project is going to be so much harder for you. One thing that's really important is the behavior has to be occurring now, at least, between 3 and 4, 5 times a day. If it occurs less than that, like 2 times a day, it's possible, but more difficult. If the behavior is occurring now fewer than 2 times a day, you really should not choose it for this project. It won't work. Every once in a while, I have a student who's not exercising at all, and they want to increase the amount of time that they're exercising. But the first 5 days of the assignment, you are recording the behavior as it's occurring now. So if it's not occurring at all, you have nothing to record. So there's no way to even come up with a plan. So it doesn't work for this assignment. I'm not saying that if you are not exercising that you shouldn't increase the amount of time you're exercising. Sure, feel free to do that, but you can't use that for this project. So for this project, you want to pick a behavior that you're performing about 4 or 5 times a day now. Okay. And you either want to increase the behavior, have it occur more often, or decrease the behavior. I noticed in your discussion boards when you were introducing one another in the first week, about 1/3 of you said that you really procrastinate more than you wish you did. So you wanted to reduce the amount of time that you spend procrastinating. That is not going to be a behavior that's going to lend itself well to using it for the behavior modification project. Because it would be too hard to go, am I procrastinating right now? What does procrastinating look like? It probably looks different at different behaviors, different times each day. And it would probably be hard to say you're doing it 4 or 5 times a day. So you want to pick something that's a little bit more specific, a little bit more concrete, that always looks similar or the same. So some good ones that have been used in the past is like people want to swear less. Well, we all know what a swear looks like and sounds like. People want to bite their nails less. Well, it's obvious when you're biting your nails versus not biting your nails. You want to yell at your kids less. Well, assuming that you're yelling at your kids a couple times a day, then you'd be able to do that behavior. If you wanted, to increase the amount of time that, a lot of people did decrease the amount of time they spend on social media. That's something that you could do. Every time you get out your phone to look at social media, you know that you're starting that behavior. That will work as long as you're looking at your social media at least 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, then it will work. You can also do something where you want to increase. All the examples I just had were decreasing behavior, but you can do a behavior that you want to increase also, as long as it's a behavior that you're already doing 3 or 4 times a day right now. Does that make sense? So maybe you want to read to your child more. Well, as long as you're sitting down and reading to your child a couple times a day now, then you could increase that to even more often. Okay, so picking that behavior becomes really, really important. Let me give you an overview of what you're going to do by looking at these instructions. For 5 days, you are going to track your behavior using this narrative observation form, and I'll explain the form to you in just a minute. And on the form, it's going to ask you to discuss what was going on before you did the behavior, what your thoughts and feelings were, where were you, who was around you. Then the actual behavior, what was that like? And then what happened after the behavior? What were your thoughts and your feelings right after the behavior? And you're going to write each of these down every time you do the behavior. Hopefully you're doing it about 4 or 5 times a day for 5 days. So now you're going to have between 20 and 25, what I'm going to call data points. In other words, a line on the narrative observation form where you have performed this behavior between 20 and 25 times in this 5-day period. Now, for the next couple of days, you are going to really, and maybe it wouldn't take you a couple of days, maybe it would take you just 1 day, but you're going to look and really analyze what is going on here. You are going to look at what are the associations, what kind of classical conditioning principles is going on that created this behavior, and what kind of operant conditioning principles are going on that's maintaining the behavior. What was perhaps like, and you want to be able to name these things. What's the US? What's the UR? What's the CS that now leads to the CR? You want to talk about what are positive punishers and negative punishers, positive reinforcers, negative reinforcers. What's the schedule of reinforcement that's being used to maintain the behavior and promote it, keep it going? So you're going to really analyze why you're doing this behavior and what's keeping it going, why it started and what's keeping it going. And you're then going to think about a behavior modification plan, ways that you're going to use operant conditioning in order to change your behavior. So you're going to want to punish behaviors that you want to reduce, and you're going to want to reinforce behaviors that you want to increase. In addition to punishing behaviors that you want to reduce, you may want to do incompatible behaviors. Does that make sense? So that will also reduce the behavior that you're trying to reduce. So you're going to come up with this behavior modification plan. Then for 4 days, you're going to implement the plan, and you're going to complete the narrative observation form again for the 4 days that you're implementing this behavior modification plan. So again, each time you perform the behavior, you'll let us know what you were thinking and feeling and where you were and what was going on before the behavior, what the behavior was like, and the consequences of the behavior, what you were thinking and feeling, what happened after it. And so you can see it's going to take a minimum of 9 days to do this. 5 days of recording the behavior before you change it, 4 days of recording the behavior as you're implementing the behavior modification plan. And you probably need a day in between those two to come up with your plan. So that's why I'm saying there's like 10 days right there. And then you're going to want a couple of days to actually write up the paper. So you're going to write a paper. You can see here how it's 4 to 5 pages long. It's impossible to do this in less than 4 pages. So remember, this is APA style, so it's 1-inch margins all the way around. It's double spaced. If you need more than 5 pages, take them. I'm just trying to give you an approximation of how long it usually takes students. But if it's taking you less than 4 pages, you're doing something wrong. You just can't do it that quickly. You need to explain things more in more detail. And if that's going on with you, then why don't you call me, or we can set up a Zoom meeting, or we can email. You can send me a draft and I can look at it and give you some feedback. Now, make sure you give me some time for that. So you can't send it to me, April 30th and say, okay, I need feedback. It's not long enough when it's due May 1st. So you need to give me some time. But in this 4 to 5 page paper, you're going to describe what the target behavior is and why you chose to manipulate that behavior. You're going to include the narrative observation form for the first 5 days. You're going to include in this paper an interpretation of the first 5 days using classical conditioning terminology, CS, US, CR, UR. What associations were you making between stimulus and responses? In more broad terms, why do you think that you perform the behavior with these sorts of environmental stimuli? You're also going to interpret the 5 days in terms of operant conditioning too, if that's applicable. Then you're going to include your narrative observation form for the 4-day period after you've implemented the behavior modification plan. And you're going to interpret those 4 days of using operant conditioning terminology. So positive reinforcer, negative reinforcer, positive punisher, negative punisher. Be sure to include the schedule of reinforcement or the schedule of punisher. Okay. Then you're going to talk about how successful you were in changing your behavior. Make sure you know, or it's important to me that you know, that you don't get any points if you were successful, and you don't lose any points if you were unsuccessful. So that is nothing. It has very little to do with the grade on this. What I'm looking for here is that you come up with a plan and you're able to apply classical and operant conditioning to your behavior, to yourself. You're going to ask yourself and tell me in your paper, what do you think helped you to change your behavior in the last 4 days? What do you think kept you from adequately changing your behavior? And how likely do you think you'll be in maintaining the behavior? And which approach, classical conditioning or operant conditioning, better helped you understand your behavior? And which do you think will be was more useful in changing your behavior? What other approach do you think would have been better in influencing the behavior? Okay. And so it's important that you know that in this 4 to 5 page paper, that does not include the narrative observation forms. So it's 4 to 5 pages of writing it up, and then you'll have a narrative observation form for the first 5 days and a narrative observation form for the second 4-day period. Okay. So I think one way to really, when you're writing the paper, is to look at the behavior modification grading. So if you look at this grading form here, you will be able to see exactly how many points are associated with each aspect of the paper. And I think that can be very, very useful. All right. Okay, I'm going to stop the share for a minute, and I just want to let you know that if you have any questions at all, please contact me. My email address is maryd@cameron.edu. My phone number on campus is 580-581-2315. We can set up a Zoom meeting and we can talk. You can just email me. We can talk on the phone, whatever is easiest for you, whatever will work most well for you. I will probably post another video that gives you an example, just to make it a little bit more specific. But I do want to give you an overview of what the project is like and let you start thinking now about a behavior that might work for you. Oh, before I let you go, I do want to just very quickly have you take a look at the narrative observation form. So here's where you put the date and the time, the antecedents. These are your thoughts and your feelings and where you are and what's going on before you did the behavior, your actual behavior, and then your thoughts and feelings and where you are and what's going on around you right after you perform the behavior. So that's what the narrative observation form looks like. In addition, you will see in the I'm sorry, I'm losing my place here. in the course, Blackboard course shell, you will be able to see, if I can get here, under course materials, back to the behavior modification project. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll be able to see the behavior modification rubric. This rubric we use to assess your behavior as a your paper as a department. So this is less for your grading. It is used for grading also, but it's also used for our assessment. We want to make sure that at least 80% of the students who graduate with a psychology degree or even take psychology of learning score well on this assignment, score at least an 80% or higher. And so this gives you even more information about how the points are assigned. And I think personally that this works as a really good checklist. I would use the grading rubric as I was writing it, and then I'd go back and look at this to really make sure that I've hit all of these points. Okay. All right. Remember to email me if you have any questions at all. I hope this was helpful. Thank you.